Hello, welcome. You're watching The Weekly here on RT with me, Andrew Farmer. Now, the American Secretary of State's doing the rounds in Europe to try to drum up support for a unilateral strike against Syria. EU foreign ministers have largely agreed with US claims that the Syrian government was responsible for the alleged deadly use of chemical weapons last month. But Brussels has stopped short of openly supporting a unilateral US military response. European leaders want to wait for the results of a UN probe into the toxic allegations. It's after key world powers at the G20 summit in St. Petersburg spoke out against the use of force without a UN mandate, while Russia accused the Syrian rebels of unleashing chemical weapons to provoke foreign intervention. Anita Nawi reports.
I was elected to end wars, not start them.
U.S. military intervention in Syria dominated talks at the G20. But if Obama was looking to gather overwhelming support at the summit, he didn't get it in St. Petersburg.
There is no military solution.
There is no military solution.
We will not participate in military action.
Aside from France, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, few countries expressed outright support for Obama's proposal of a military strike. In a joint statement, they condemned the use of chemical weapons, blaming the Assad government, and called for some kind of response, but they stopped short of backing a U.S. attack on Syria. Summit host President Putin accused the rebels of being behind a chemical weapons attack near Damascus in August that he says was carried out to discredit Syrian authorities in the eyes of the West.
I view everything that happened with the so-called use of chemical weapons in Syria as a provocation by the rebels who count on help from abroad, from those countries that originally supported them. That's the reason for this provocation. I also want to remind you that the use of force against a sovereign state is acceptable only if it's done for self-defense, and we know that Syria hasn't attacked the US, and only if the UN Security Council approves such action. As one of the participants of our discussions on the issue put it yesterday, those who do otherwise put themselves above the law.
Obama continues to insist Assad was behind the attack, and he won't wait for the UN to respond.
The Assad's regime's brazen use of chemical weapons isn't just a Syrian tragedy. It's a threat to global peace and security.
The U.S. president is due to address the American public on Tuesday and try to make his best argument for an attack on Syria, one that failed to convince global partners at the G20. This summit could have been a last chance for a political solution to the Syria crisis, or at least an attempt to push forward with diplomacy. But leaders parted St. Petersburg split solidly on those for or against military intervention in the Syrian war, what has been called the worst humanitarian crisis in modern history. Reporting from the G20, Anita Nawi, RT.
Well, Syria wasn't the only topic being thrashed out in St. Petersburg this week. Later this hour, as debt and joblessness weigh heavy on G20 members, the head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, defends monetary policy to RT's Katie Pilbeam. She'll also have more first-hand insight on where next for the world economy. US Congress remains split on whether to attack Syria, and the latest polls show most Americans oppose intervention. There's been a fresh anti-war rally in Washington as hundreds call for restraint from the White House.
Obama! Hands off Syria!
Much of the public remains unconvinced over Washington's claims it has evidence implicating the Syrian government in the deadly use of chemical weapons. But President Obama maintains he still has the authority to order an attack, even if Congress votes against it. Journalist Don DeBar thinks the move by the Secretary of State to drum up support in Europe will not be bought by America's allies either.
The entire history recited by Kerry neglects to mention the allegations and the hugely substantial evidence in this case that the rebels are the ones that are using chemical weapons in Syria where they've been used. Now, I'm assuming again that there would be some perhaps presentation of actual evidence about the facts on the ground in Syria, because the facts that have actually been disclosed to the American public and to the Congress in public are not facts. They're argument, accusation, and conclusion. And that is the basis on which they're going to war, illegally, by the way, outside of the UN mandate, outside of the UN Charter, and not just illegally according to international law, but according to US law.
And as US Congress prepares to reconvene on Monday and debate whether to wage war on Syria, the Senate Intelligence Committee has released what it says is footage of last month's alleged chemical attack. And you might find the following images distressing. Despite the assertion of US officials that the footage is authentic, it cannot be independently confirmed, nor does it point to who was responsible for the alleged atrocity in which more than 1,400 Syrians are said to have been killed. Now, the Syrian army has sent reinforcements, including tanks, to the village of Malula, which has been at the forefront of heavy clashes this week. An ancient Christian sanctuary, Malula has been besieged by al-Qaeda-affiliated rebels since Wednesday. RT's Maria Fanoshna has gained access to the stricken area.
We enter Malula through its ancient gates, burned and damaged in recent attacks, shortly after the Syrian army announces that most of the militants were pushed back. Signs of a recent battle and destruction are everywhere. We were told to move fast and to follow the military's vehicles without stopping or even slowing down. There are some parts of the road where we have to speed up. Officers still fear there could be snipers around. We hear them shouting, "Go, go, fast." On one turn, we suddenly stop.
So where we stop?
It's hard to understand exactly what happened. We only hear a loud boom and feel the earth shake. We get out of the car to take a look around.
We're now inside Malula village. It's hard to believe that what used to be one of the most significant shrines of the Christian community all over the world now is a battlefield. Look at this.
And then we realized we have landed in the heart of this battle as suddenly bullets started flying around us.
We've entered Malula village with the army, but just a few minutes later they told us to get back.
The militants launched an attack, firing and throwing explosives from the safety of high ground.
So this is what we're doing right now. We are coming back to the entrance. This is where a car bomb exploded on Wednesday morning, and this is how it all started. After a suicide attack, militants, mostly from Jabhat al-Nusra group, stormed in, and since then clashes have been continuing for 3 days. And as you can see, they are continuing now.
Soldiers fire shots back, but they can't even see enemy fighters who are cooped up in their hiding places.
There are militants in Malula village right now, and they are in Safir Hotel. This is the mountaintop hotel which was taken by the rebels, the armed rebels, on their first day, and they are firing even now from that strategic position, but also from behind the mountains surrounding the Malula village, and that is where the danger lies, because there are many snipers and there are rocket grenades and there are bombs, mortar bombs. Well, as you can see, the situation on the ground is very hard. You can see that the army is regrouping right now, but the thing is that tomorrow, on Monday, the situation could change dramatically, because this is the day when American Congress starts debate on Syria, whether to strike this country or not.
The decision made thousands of kilometers away from this battlefield will affect the setup at this military theater. But exactly how is not easy to predict. Maria Fanoshna, RT, from Malula in Syria.
Now, the fight to be Moscow's next mayor reaches its crescendo today. The key battle in regional elections